Hi, this is Nick on the 10th of July. Hope all is good with you. This week's theme of broadcasts, which I'll be sharing little ideas every day and little messages every day, is about the idea of shadow lives and shadow callings. That's a massive area, so I'm just going to do my best to distill some of the key points this week. But let's start today on just my perspective, because I'm not saying this is the complete picture, but just my perspective on what it means to have a shadow life and or a shadow calling. So here's my, if you like, my starting point, my presupposition. I believe we're all born with incredible innate talents and abilities and gifts. And I believe each of us is born with some sense of a calling, some sense of what we're here to do in this world, and how we want to contribute those gifts and the difference we want to make in this world. And my personal belief is that we've all come here with a plan to help, whatever language you want to use, but like the healing of the world, making this world a better place, restoring this world to love, whatever language you want to use. I believe all of us arrive here with that. And I don't know about your experience, but my experience is that wasn't particularly validated in me when I was growing up. Some of me got validated, but a lot of me didn't. I never had anybody kind of saying to me when I was a kid, you have a purpose, you have a calling, there's something you were born to do and somebody you were born to be. I don't think I heard that message at all when I was growing up. I don't think I particularly heard the message that I had so many gifts and talents inside me that I could learn to unwrap during the course of my lifetime. I don't think I particularly heard that message. Maybe I did and I've forgotten, but I didn't hear those messages, particularly when I was growing up. I don't know whether you did. I'd love to hear. So what happens then? My belief is, well, if that's true, if we have these callings and we have these talents and gifts, and they're not honoured and they don't get to blossom naturally, where do they go? And I don't think they go away completely, and this is where the shadow life idea comes in, is they become our unlived life. If we're not living them out consciously, somehow we're living them unconsciously, if you like. So I think what happens is we can admire, say, something in other people, but what we're really admiring is what we could be ourselves. And that's often a shadow life. We look at somebody else and go, wow, aren't they amazing? But what we're not recognizing is how amazing we are. We're looking at our own disowned thoughts. We're looking at our own disowned gifts, perhaps. And of course, it's possible just to look at people and admire them and it not to be a shadow life. We could just celebrate them and enjoy them. And I think sometimes there is this thing, it's like, maybe I could have done that. Maybe I could have been like that. So that's the idea of a shadow life, is that this life doesn't go away. We see it around us, but we're not kind of owning it ourselves. And for me, a shadow calling is the idea that we do, left to our own devices, we will naturally gravitate towards particular things. Some people gravitate towards mathematics, some people would gravitate towards geography or history. I suppose I gravitated towards spiritual ideas, personal growth, but I didn't do that when I was younger. I only came to that later on. So for me, my shadow life really hit me. Well, I came across this idea of having a shadow life and a shadow calling about 25 years ago. It was actually reading the book by Julia Cameron called The Artist's Way that really brought this home to me. Those are little sections, probably in a couple of pages and a few paragraphs on this idea, but she talked about, each of us having an inner artist. And I would say we have an inner artist, we have an inner leader, if you like, some part of us that wants to lead the way in our own life and potentially lead the way in the world. And most of us didn't get that validated, so therefore we end up living a life that's kind of parallel to the one that we want to be living. Because the bottom line is really, we don't really believe in ourselves. We don't really believe in our own talents. We don't really believe in our own abilities. We don't believe in our own power, particularly. We diminish ourselves, and at worst, we really are pretty tough on ourselves. We have that harsh inner critic that when we do think about stepping into our power and our gifts or our abilities, part of us goes, who the heck do you think you are? You know, it's that kind of shaming voice that puts us back down again. So our parallel life is one caused by that inner critic, if you like, that we're just most of us are so tough on ourselves that we're just not allowing ourselves to blossom. When we have that inner impulse to blossom, we go, get back in your box, who do you think you are? And this was really brought home to me, as I say, about 20 years ago now, when I read Julia Cameron's book. And at the time I was co-leading the Alternatives Programme in London. If you don't know the Alternatives Programme, it is, you know, London's premier Mind, Body, Spirit platform. You know, all the big names in that world, when they're in town, they come and speak. Whether that's Marianne Williamson, John Gray, who wrote Venus and Mars, Wayne Dyer, Deepak Chopra, Susan Jeffers, Eckhart Tolle, Neil Donald Walsh, people like that. When they were in London, they would come and speak at Alternatives, and I was hosting them. I was organising the talks for them, I was introducing them, I was doing the marketing of the programme, and, you know, to some extent I was enjoying it, but I was also getting a little bit kind of bored and frustrated and wondering what was wrong with me. And it was then that I read this idea of the shadow life and shadow calling, and I had what I affectionately call an oh shit moment, where I had this moment of awareness. And the moment of awareness for me was when I realised that I was hosting some of the world's most successful authors. In the world of personal and spiritual development. I was hosting some of the world's most inspiring and dynamic speakers on that subject. And yet the awareness was, actually, there's a speaker in me. Actually, there's an author in me. Now, I was already doing a bit of speaking at that point, but I wasn't particularly writing. But it was this awareness of like, oh gosh, I have gravitated towards the area that is my calling, which is personal and spiritual growth. But within that area, I'm hiding out. And that was the big awareness, which was, this is the idea for me of a parallel life, is I was drawn to the area I wanted to be involved with, but I was playing small within it. I was supporting the callings, if you like, of other people, and playing second fiddle, when really there was a, you know, I don't mean it in an ego way, but there was a more starring role for me to play. There was a light that I had to shine, a message that I had to share, that I wasn't yet sharing. I was supporting everyone else sharing their messages, but I wasn't particularly sharing my own messages. And that was that aha moment, which for, you know, a little while was, wonderful, now I can see what I'm doing. But it wasn't long before my inner critic then began to kick in and go, who the heck do you think you are? You know, stay in your box, you know, you're just a promoter, you're a host, you know, you could never make your living out of being a speaker, sharing your own messages and giving your own talks. That would never happen. You know, those people can do it. It's not for you. So I had massive amounts of my own resistance to work through, and to be honest, still working through, to be able to step into my true calling, my full calling, not my shadow calling. So I hope I've given you a sense of, you know, what it means to have a lived life and an unlived life, a calling and a shadow calling. You know, I'm going to be expanding on this during the week, but I wanted to share the ideas and give you my own personal example. So when I had that awareness, it was probably in about 1996, 1997. You know, it was a pivotal moment in my life. It was the awareness that I was living a shadow life. I kind of had an idea about this concept, but it was that experience which made me go, oh, now I see really clearly what I'm doing. I'm in the area that I want to be involved in, and yet within it I'm hiding out because I'm afraid, I don't believe in myself, I'm pretty tough on myself. But if I'm honest, I really sense that I could blossom into being this this person who has his own messages to share, who has his own books to write, his own talks to give, his own broadcast to do, like I'm doing now. So for me, it's been a 20-year journey, and it's still an ongoing journey from coming out of the shadows of my own life and showing up in the center of my own life. So I hope that makes sense to you. So thank you so much for watching this. Yeah, have a wonderful day. I'd love to hear your thoughts. God bless. Bye-bye.